Our meeting is live, and I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting of the Salem Board of Education to order. It is 6:01. Would people please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any amendments to the agenda? There are no amendments. We did make a couple changes on the 25-26 calendar, so I did change that late this afternoon, and it is attached. So turn it over to the superintendent for reports and presentation.
Good evening, everyone. So we have two presentations this evening. Our first one is our library and media services specialist teacher, guru, teacher of the year previously. And we affectionately call her our librarian. So thank you, Karen, for coming. She has been doing a lot of work related to STEM and what we call STEAM, and she's going to give you a little overview of what we're putting in place.
So I'm here to talk to you about the new K-8 STEAM Lab. If you're not aware, STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And we had a grant a few years ago, and so we made a lab. Since we're not in the lab, I took some pictures of it today, just so you could see how it's set up. You are welcome to come anytime, and I can give you a tour. The nice thing is we have a green screen wall here that's been used quite a bit this year. And the tables all have wheels, so they're movable and it's very convenient for moving things around. And then around the edges of the room, we have a lot of storage. These are all the activities we have available in the STEAM Lab. I'm not going to read all of them. I can put this back up later if you would like to read them all, but we tried to do a balance between building and robotics and coding, art and different things. And we also tried to balance it out since it's a K-8 STEAM Lab. Lots of activities for various age groups. So one of the ways the STEAM Lab, I'm going to talk about how it's been used so far this year. One of the ways that we use it is I run a makerspace club. It's on Thursdays after school. It's for grades 3 through 6, and each grade meets individually. So for example, 6th grade met for 4 weeks, and then 5th grade after vacation will be meeting for 4 weeks, and then 4th grade and 3rd grade. And they are welcome to do any of the activities in the STEAM Lab or in the library makerspace. Sometimes I set out specific things they can do, and sometimes it's just a free building. So in some of these pictures, we have these guys were using the snap circuits to make an RC car and then to code it to run. Here they were doing marble runs with Magna-Tiles. He was using a dash robot and coding it, and he was also using a dash robot and coding it, and made a little thing on the back that would go. And the group up there, that's actually in the library, not the STEAM Lab, they were making a bowling alley. And I know it's hard to see, but they have 4 dash robots set up there that were going to go down the alley and knock the pins down.
And one of the things too is we intentionally utilize the room next to the library so that we could not only transition to use it, kind of loan it out throughout the day, but for Karen to be able to utilize it with her library classes, the Makerspace Club. She does Girls Who Code. We do a lot of different things, and we just thought it would be nice to really kind of marry those two areas together.
Yeah, there always was a doorway, it was just covered up between the 2 rooms, so they can be opened up.
Yes, it's our dream to open that up.
So some of the things that I've done with the students so far this year is I started with 6th grade in the lab right at the beginning, and the 6th graders kind of looked around and said, we want to do marble runs. So we did marble runs here. These are really nice ones. It's funny, I'm usually frustrated with the marble run because they fall over, but these are great. They're very sturdy. And these two gentlemen in particular were very proud because they made an infinite loop one. So it was going around and around and around. Also, we did some Lego building at the beginning of the year to start off the unit I do with the kids on building and engineering. They have a pack of Legos and they have a partner and they have 20 minutes to make whatever they can out of the Legos. And I thought this one was pretty ingenious. It was a walker going through the forest, and those were all the Legos they had. So I thought they did a great job. Continuing with sixth grade, what we're working on right now is a project called Building a House for the Fourth Little Pig. Mrs. Adams also asked me to talk about how I integrate library research and literature into what I do with STEAM. So for this project, we started out rereading The Three Little Pigs. They all knew it, but I just wanted them to have some of the details they might have lost. We used the BrainPop database to learn about building basics. And then their parameters were, it had to fit in a tray this big, they each had a tray. They could only use the materials that were mostly recycled materials, a few things not recycled in the back room. The pig had to be able to come in and out of the house, and they had to be able to lift it out of the tray. So you can see some various pictures, a good thinking one here, of some of the things they made. These are two that were actually tried out today. This one, this was great problem solving. The first time my big bad wolf up there, which is actually my hairdryer, it blew it off. So those two students went back and decided that it needed more weight. They put more weight in it. And then the second time they tried it, it stayed. It was great. So this is really fun. I've done this a few times over the years, and this particular group of kids today talked about how much they really liked this project. Going on to fifth grade, fifth grade has been of the upper elementary in the least because after vacation, they will be going in a lot. So the project that we'll be working on after vacation, it's called the Giant Panda Rescue. Right now, they're currently finishing some panda research that we did with the two databases up here, Higher Knowledge Life Science and Britannica. And then right after vacation, the next step of this is they'll have a toolbox that has a panda that they need to rescue out of it. And they have to use the practice with the databases again to get clues to the numbers to open the combination on the box. After they do that, their next task, which is where the STEAM room comes in, is they have to take a baby panda bear in this rainforest that I made using a dash robot that they must code. They have to take the baby panda bear to the mama panda bear at the end. So in doing this, they're building an attachment for this, and they're having to measure distance, and they're coding a robot at this, all those things in there together. So this is a picture from a couple of years ago, but this is where we're going with fifth grade after. Fourth grade, earlier in the year, fourth grade came in and we used Ozobot robots. Ozobot robots are, you can see up here, here's a tiny one. They follow lines. So you can print things from the website that already have lines on them, or the kids can draw lines. It will follow black, red, blue, and green. And what we did here was at Thanksgiving, we read the book Balloons Over Broadway. Then we went to the Macy's website and did a little investigating of the balloons that year. And then the students made their own, these are kind of hard to see, but they made their own balloons. They drew them and attached them with a pipe cleaner. And then we had our own balloon parade with the Ozobots. Second grade, we've been coding with these great things called Bebots. They are my favorite thing right now in the lab. You'll see we've used them a lot. The nice thing about these little robots are they're good for kindergarten through sixth grade. Younger kids can code them using the buttons on the top. Older kids can take an iPad, connect it, and then block code with it. So it kind of does the whole spectrum. So with these guys, we just did a unit where we read some books about farms and used PebbleGo to research about farms and farm animals. And then when they go back for vacation, we'll be using this farm map. I have about 10, there's about 10 of them in there, and they're going to code their Bebop to different challenges on the farm map. Third and fourth graders have also used this. I started with how to code a sandcastle. It's a great book about coding. And then we went more into the town map over there. And also online, you can do it. You can code it online and it will go.
This is awful. We can't remember our passwords.
Lastly, you know what? I'm gonna skip the slide. I just want to go back because there's a couple of kids whose faces. No, I guess it just isn't in there. I saw some great second grade pictures. Anyway, so this one is, I've gone in with both focus classes. And we've done some varying activities, all of them related to a book. So one of the activities we did was we read the book Big Bulldozers. And then the nice thing about these Bebots is we also have number lines. And so, you know, this is 1, 2, 3, and they took the Bebot and they put the same number of blocks on there and they pushed them down the number line. We also did, and they did this too. We read all through our town. We did the town map and they made, there's a little hook on the back of a Bebot. So they had to make something that would carry one of our stuffed critters around on the map. And Thanksgiving time, we read Turkey Trouble. And they used the Ozobot over here to get the turkey to the barn. And then that's one of the drawings that the kids did on their own. Other ways the STEAM lab has been used this year, I know Mrs. Rogers' class has gone in after school and done some coding and robots with her students. Mr. LeBlanc has come in a couple times during science class, and he's also done coding and building. Miss Courtney had a project she was doing, and a student wanted to do something with a green screen. So he came up and I helped him with the green screen. And then Film Club and Drama Club have both been upstairs to use the green screen as well. So that's how it's being used so far, and I do welcome you to come up, take a tour, you can try things out. Any questions?
As you're thinking about this a little bit, I just wanted to add that, first of all, Karen has done an amazing job from the first day that I found out when I first came in as superintendent in that summer, and I found out that in 2 days, the after-school grant portion of the ARP grant was due, and we would miss out on $150,000. And I called up Karen and said, listen, can you help me? Because I knew she was doing a great job with Makerspace and she just had that vision with the kids. I said, can you help me trick out a room? Let's start a STEAM lab, but we only have less than 2 days, like 24 hours pretty much, because then I had to write it to come up with what our order would be. And so the idea is that we could create the STEAM lab, not only to be used for after-school activities and clubs, but also to use it for academics as well. And so the vision for the future, it's a slow roll. It's taken us some time. And Karen has her other full-time job just with her library classes and overseeing 2 libraries. Take us a little while. Ideally, a vision of ours is to have at minimum a TA that could be in there and oversee and manage the lab, and coordinate not only with Karen and libraries and clubs, but also teachers to sign up a room. And that TA could then work with a teacher. So if there was a science project or a math project or a book they were reading, that TA can help develop a lesson that goes with or complements their curriculum. And then they can field trip over to the lab. Same with 7th and 8th grade.
I forgot that part.
Yeah.
Right now, Mr. DeSoto is using Vex Robotics with his junior high class. So he has a STEAM lab in his room. So he borrows them and brings it down, just because then it's more access for both spaces. But they're in the process of doing that right now.
And the vision, so then there was 150,000 of summer programming. And so most summers, Mr. DeSoto, when he's able to fit it into his schedule, has done some little, a week or two camps for different groups of kids. And so we utilized another 150,000. And so he's gotten drones, a lot of those types of things out of the ARP money. And part of the dream of maybe the next capital project, and we talk about maybe programming benefits, is to revamp kind of the tech area. We still would have a shop, but the classroom area, if we move the high school office by the front door for security purposes, which has been a discussion for many years, that little suite there is adjacent to his, that we could turn that into. The goal would be is have a K-8 STEAM lab and then have an what we call an innovation lab for his engineering tech, technology classes, but also the math and science classes or other classes down there could sign that out as well. So that you would have this K-12 continuum for STEM. I know, Mr. DeSoto and I went to the Northeast Regional Information Center, it's called NARIC, and they have a technology day every year, and we field tripped down there with 12 of his students and spent the day, and they had a tech area where the kids could go in and try out different technology. There were vendors there. Part of their job was that they had to make a recommendations to Mr. DeSoto and me about what they thought would be cool. So we got a couple ideas. And there's another one that I'll be sharing with you as we move along in safety and security. But the idea is also to have a robotics club, and there was a robotics club there, and Mr. DeSoto spent a lot of time. That's something that he and I have talked about for a few years. But a lot of these take times to build, and I think if we can complement and have a K-12 STEM type of initiative and focus, that all kind of naturally falls in place. So, you know, we're working on that. Karen and I discussed, so this year we are adding a line into our program budget. We're starting, we think about $2,000 to maintain it, to add, to complement to the lab. So that'll be a new line item. Should be fine to absorb that. But again, it's something that as we're evening out and looking at the budget, it is something that, in the very least, I think a teaching assistant to really, help and assist in that room, because it is something for, you know, if it's a classroom or grade level teacher, they also have their other lesson, and having another person and then having two people in the room when they're in there for the lab. It's very helpful, you know, so I think Karen did a great job representing what we're doing, and I think this is just the beginning, really. We're just doing a little each year, but it's come a long way just in a
And
few years.
the kids really, they love it. They ask when they come in the library door, are we going in the lab today? So, it's been pretty exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
If I may, real quick, I also just want to add a comment. That I remember from elementary that we always looked forward to Makerspace Club when you started it. I even remember coming to the board years and years ago of showing off Makerspace with Socrates, and to hear that it has grown so much more and is still growing, it makes me very happy, because I know I still use these skills today. Might be even going into college for something relating to technology in this way, so it makes me very happy.
Oh, big picture, basically.
Day and be assisting and maybe show them what they can be when you're in your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next, equally exciting, we're gonna. Thanks again, Jen. We're gonna have just a brief, just around budget time. I think it's nice just to have a brief update on our special education programming. The board does have on the agenda to approve the continuum for next year, where we are adding a new program. As we've discussed in the past, a few months about adding another program to our offering at the elementary level. So the board would need to approve that in a continuum. So I thought it would be helpful just to have Katie, obviously she's still new and learning as she's coming on board, but just give a brief overview of kind of where we are. And then also, we'll talk a little bit about the continuum.
Do you want?
All right. So good evening, everybody. So I took some time to just, kind of create the context for special education in, the district. So what I wanted folks to be able to see, was essentially the lay of the land. If you think about Salem, as a district, as a total, we have, two buildings, elementary and junior senior high school in the district total. So we're somewhere just above 500-ish, 510, 515, something.
530-ish,
Right there.
depends on the day.
Yeah, definitely depends on the day. And so then you have the splits. So you see you have a higher number of kids at the elementary than you do at the junior senior high school. Outside of those kids that were walking the halls, so these are the kids that are walking the halls. There are other kids that we don't see all the time. So we have a student who's home placed. We have related service only. Those are typically preschoolers, who may not be in a special education setting or may not be an integrated, preschool, receiving speech, OT, PT. Then you have our out of district kids. So we have kids that are at the BOCES, so we currently have 8 kids at the BOCES. And we have 3 kids in other placements, so that can be anywhere. Traditionally, we'd love for them to be in the counties closest to us, but that's not always where the best program for them is. And then we have self-contained classrooms. They do integrate back into our regular programming. And we have 3 of those classrooms currently. So we have the K2, the 3-6, the 7-12. And right now we have 1 student on tutoring. Traditionally, you might see tutoring done at the home. But in this situation, we are providing tutoring here at Salem for this student because that's the best place for them to receive instruction. So just trying to create that picture for you all to see what we have in front of us. Primarily, the programs beyond the focus rooms. So those 3 classrooms I just talked about are the focus rooms. Self-contained setting. Many of those students transition back and forth between their home base and their special areas or a other regular education setting to receive science or social studies, meeting time, home meeting, morning meeting, I should say. The kids represented in these slides are our students in the regular traditional classrooms that are receiving what we have termed co-teaching or resource room. So that is one of the lesser restrictive environments for students. This means that they're able to be with their peers in a classroom with a regular education teacher and a special educator throughout the course of the day, ELA, math, science, and social studies. In addition to that support that those students receive, so you see in the elementary building, I think this is 29. We have 29 students who are receiving co-teach. Out of those 29 students, and it may not be a 1-for-1, you may have students here that don't receive the co-teach. Most of them do. Most of them do. When you don't, under regulation part 200, if you are not meeting a certain minimum requirement of minutes per week, you have to have some element or some kind of balance so that you can equate to the 3 hours per week. So sometimes you'll see students, interchange. Same thing happens at the junior, senior high school. A little bit less in the co-teach, and then you have the resource room. In the high school, as kids age and they want to do more things and they want to have the ability to be out with their friends, and we want them to do that, we afford the opportunity for them to go to places like the BOCES for CTE programming.
And so you see that uptick in resource room because that is the support that we can provide to those kids who are leaving us for half the day and coming back, and within regulation, maintain compliance. So supporting them so that they can be in their least restrictive setting, which may be that CTE programming, and then coming back here and receiving ELA, math, science, social studies, or elective instruction in the other half of their day. So this is just the representation of the students that are in the co-teach situation. So these kids are walking our halls. We have 20 kids at the junior, senior high school, 29 at the elementary building. What you should reflect on is that, so these are all of our classified kids that are walking our halls, relatively speaking. There's a few more that wouldn't be necessarily in the co-teach situation, but this is the least restrictive setting for them to be successful in their academic journey. This represents, depending on the year, between 17 to 20% classification. So if you think about your total enrollment, any given year, the last year that I just looked on the state report card, you're somewhere around 17%. I think we'll probably be a little bit higher. In the time that I've been here, I've had 14 kids join us. And so we've had a couple kids leave us, but it wasn't an even split. So our numbers do tend to fluctuate, but not too greatly. I don't want to minimize the other services that we provide, because we do provide a number of other services for our students beyond just the academic supports for them to access their education. And those are related services. So you see, we provide counseling, speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, orientation and mobility, and music therapy. And so those are the units of service. Those don't represent necessarily the number of kids, but they represent the total units of service that are provided every week to our population here in district. I did take out to keep apples to oranges, or to apples, I took out the preschoolers because it would have skewed the data a little bit. It would have made it look that we're doing a ton more. And we are doing that service, but it's within context. I wanted to make sure that we stayed within the same kind of representation. So you can see on any given week, our 3 speech providers are providing about 135 units of regular support to our students. We have a full-time occupational therapist. She's providing almost 50 units per week. Our PT is only here 2 days a week, I believe. Might be here 2.5, but I think it's 2. She's giving us about 30 units. Orientational mobility is a very low incident population. So that's vision services. That's students who have vision challenges, who might need to learn how to navigate environments and places with their vision disability so that they're comfortable where they are. Our focus rooms receive music therapy, and one of our home students receives music therapy, and then counseling. If I were to give an asterisk to any one of these categories up here, it would be the counseling. And that's because not all counseling services that we provide are provided on an IEP. We provide a ton of other supports to kids with our school counselors. Currently, we have 2, one elementary and one at the junior, senior high school, with our social worker and our school psychologist. Erin will be leaving us at the end of February, and so we'll be replacing her to provide that crisis intervention support, which is primarily the things that you're probably not seeing up here. She's the triage on the scene. She's going and checking in and seeing what's going on where we're sending kids to her. So that gives you the context of what our kids need, what we're providing to our students. And so
Kate, can you just stay on the
I
slide
can.
for 1 minute? Sorry to
Nope.
interrupt your flow. So something just to point out is, so we've had some initial discussions, and we're still sorting through this in the program budget. So the units of service obviously depend on IEPs. The kids are in different places, that we're going through annual reviews. Oftentimes as kids progress, they may go to a group setting. we're on the cusp. We do, one of our three do provide a lot of, a portion of pre-K evaluation services that we bill back to the county. And so right now, we're debating and struggling with, do we replace that third person? There is a huge shortage. I don't know if you've seen that on the news. So we may try to do that, or depending on how many additional units we need, we may look, if we can't find a person part-time, because it probably most likely might be a part-time, which is what happened. We were looking for Aaron Carr. And we did then come to this agreement with the county because nobody would come to work part-time for us. So we employed her full-time and we billed back the pre-K and took on a lot of the pre-K services for the county. So that is an option, and that's something right now that we're trying to work through for, the budget. Because it is, we're kind of right on the line. If we take out the pre-K that we bill back to the county and have the county take, typically, the county will do a lot of that. But there is that arrangement that we ended up making with them and it worked out as well. So that's something as Katie, and the speech providers are going through, looking at the annual reviews. I know Katie mentioned today that, she was going to, that the speech providers were maybe gonna kind of draft something up to say,
Yeah.
what would it look like next year, to see if, how, you know, if we can make it, if we didn't have the pre-K, can we make it with two counselors? So, I mean, two speech therapists, so I think that's, still yet to be determined, but you can see that doesn't even include the pre-K, so it is,
There's probably, I would
Yeah.
say 13, I would say there's probably 13 other kids that are not represented here that are county kids.
Right.
And you can guarantee that means that they receive at least one unit in preschool. It's usually highly intensive. So it's usually somewhere 2 to 3-ish.
So that's
Bridget could
what we're
correct
looking
me.
for.
Bridget's in the audience, but,
Yeah, so you may, that's something we're working through, and there's been some initial discussions that Katie's had. I believe you already had it, so it's not a surprise to Bridget, that we're possibly thinking about not replacing Colleen. She announced her retirement, but there is this concern is, can we really do it? And we obviously don't want to be short on services for our children because it is a great benefit to them. We've had a great success of students exiting them as they kind of get through. You always see a few longer than others, but we have a great success with what we're offering now. So I think we want to be careful not to sell that short.
and what I've learned is, Salem is in an interesting, position to have the third service provider to help them with preschool and preschool evaluations. Most districts do not have that. And so there is a benefit to Salem having that person on staff to keep them, how do I say, in line with the state ed, guidelines. So it helps keep us within our 60-day requirements for evaluations. Because if I'm calling Glens Falls Hospital and they don't have anybody, I'm sitting on a wait list with.
Yeah, we were
districts.
quite behind
Yes.
for a while before we got Aaron. It was very difficult, and that is, so we end up being out of compliance, which is on us, but it's out of our control. So it does provide a lot of benefits to us, so, we're tossing that around. So you may hear about that, and I don't, we'll know probably by March, April. We're trying to decide which number to give to Karen to run, but, so.
Which way is it gonna go, Karen?
Yeah, but, just to give people an idea of what we wrestle with, because it's not an easy decision to make, and we really wanna do right by our kids. So, sorry, Don.
No, that's okay. So that's the context. On the agenda tonight, you're going to see that we're gonna talk through the special ed continuum. You've seen it. And it is not drastically different than what has been proposed in the past. There are slight tweaks to make sure that we're in compliance with Part 200. But I wanted to be able to put kind of the numbers behind what that continuum looks like so that you can think about the services that we're providing. Julie and I have been, talking, State Ed has just announced that they're going to be doing, a series of audits in school districts, for their, special education placements. And really what they're going to be focusing on is the least restrictive environment. So are students placed where they can be the most successful in the least restrictive setting? So does a student really need to be at BOCES in a 12-1-2, or could they be best served back in their home district in a 12-1-2? Because even though those programs, you think when I say 12-1-2, they're equal, they are not necessarily equal, and the state sees them very different. The BOCES is a much more restrictive setting because they don't have access to the typical peers that you would have in a 12-1-2 in your home school. And so they see it very differently. And so they're going to be taking a look at what school districts have to offer, where they're placing their students, because as you probably have heard, placements for special education students are very difficult to come by these days. We are on waiting lists for a number of kids. The student that's represented on tutoring is a student that is on a waiting list because there's no space anywhere in the capital region. We exhausted everything within about a 45 to 50-minute drive, and there's nothing that is available to this student. So we are on a wait list, and he's not the only one. And I know, talking to my Washington County colleagues, they're all in the same place. They got 2 or 3 kids, and then it becomes that I heard you opened a classroom in your building. Would you consider letting us send a student from so-and-so to your place? And so that's going to be the interesting conversation as things change in the educational environment, and placements become more and more difficult to come by. I know BOCES is not going to have their Ballard Road classroom, which is a less restrictive setting than their Sanford Street classroom. So all they will have is the most restrictive separate school setting for students on the autism spectrum. So the least restrictive setting is actually the only options will be for us to keep them here or send them there. And there's a significant difference in restriction.
And there's also a pretty lengthy waiting list on
Yeah.
top of it. And
Yeah, we're
that's-
there's about 15 deep right now.
Right. Been a difficult situation, especially when we get students who transfer in, and we are small, so not to get into too many particulars, but we have a few students right now, and actually, it would just made me think, and we'll talk about that later, the Nourishing Minds, but the bottom line is that New York State, and, students have the right to education, right? Every student, and certainly we honor that in New York, but New York State says it shouldn't be the student's problem that you can't find a placement, you need to make it here. And that's why we've talked about on the continuum, when we get to it, is this additional classroom? But it's also important to understand that it's not typical for a lot of districts to have especially our size, as many self-contained classrooms that we do, and that has their own challenges that come with it in terms of space and accessibility for some of the kids. And so we're still working through that a little bit. And but we do have some interest in maybe tuitioning in some students, which would help support those programs. They are, obviously require us to have, additional staffing and or resources. And, and that's another piece, if we have maybe 5 or 6 slots between all of the different programs, we tuition 6, though if we filled them all and all of those students needed speech, that changes our look of what we need for a speech therapist. Or, so we could say, oh, we think we're gonna try it, and then a month later, I might come back to you and say, we need to fill that spot, or we need to up that 0.6 to a 1.0. So it's, as you know, sometimes it's a very ever-changing process.
So when Julie referenced the continuum, The continuum, if you think about it, is your traditional classroom, related services. Then you get into your co-teach consultant teacher model, resource room, and then you get into the special classes. And there's a whole derivative of special classes. And if you ever hear the 612, 613, 812, 813, 1212, 1511, all of those are just configurations of classrooms, how many students to how many teachers to how many teaching assistants. We are, as you've seen before you, we are trying to open a K-2, what will be a 1-2 eventually setting. It is a,
So 8 students,
Yep.
1 teacher, and 2 other paraprofessionals. So most likely would be ideally 1 teaching assistant, TA, and 1 aide for that classroom.
So within that setting, the need that we currently have, where we have 4 students that we think are better served in this type of setting, it's a average to moderate, how did we word that, Joel?
Moderate to severe.
Moderate to severe cognitive ability, but highly behavioral. So kids who are having difficulty self-regulating, following the typical classroom rules, staying within the classroom walls, not as maybe severely cognitively
Yeah, I
deficit.
thought you were going with the behavior piece. So basically they're not alternatively assessed.
Correct.
So a lot of our other rooms, the students have significant cognitive delays or deficiencies that they are considered alternate assessed. So they don't take the New York State assessments. They're not considered to be students preparing for a high school or Regents diploma. They might be getting a skills credential. So these students would still be, even though in a K-2 setting, they would be on pace with their curriculum. That's why we really would want a TA in that room, a teaching assistant. So it helps with maybe some of the varied levels of ability. So if you had 4 students in there to start and 3 of them were in first grade and 1 was in second grade, the second grader would be trying to stay on pace with his or her peers. The idea is that because of behavioral needs or difficulties, challenges based on some portion of their disability, that they just need a smaller class environment so that they would be on pace and on track with their peers. And over time, with the proper supports, those students may then exit that program in that classroom over time.
So most of the students that we're looking at for that potential classroom right now, sound is an issue for them. Lots of sounds moving around, lots of transitions, and all of that kind of stuff is what impedes them from being able to stay on task and within the traditional setting. What's nice about the possibility, or when this classroom does open, is that we will have the ability to integrate that classroom with their typical peers. And so they will be able to do specials, art, music, library, PE with their typical peers. Should we need to kind of take that down, then we have the ability to do that.
You could have maybe really the core instruction, especially foundationally for the younger kids. Definitely want to see them with math and ELA, but it could be that they're doing a parallel science project. And so maybe they work on some of that science project in their smaller setting, but maybe then integrate in with a larger group to do presentations or different types of experiences that they are able to handle without necessarily being in a larger group every single day. So those are some of the that's the rationale for that program. And it is a little different than some of the others that we offer. We do possibly have some interest to tuition in some students into that setting. So that would be a little larger of a student teacher ratio, 8-1, instead of our other classes are 6-1. We do right now we are tutoring some students or having them in a separate setting with a TA, pushing in a little bit into a classroom because we don't have that classroom set up yet, but we had some students transfer in that need to be in that setting right now. So again, ideally, we're trying to serve those students in other ways, but do need that classroom as we speak.
So you're moving.
Yeah, incrementally, we're trying, so I couldn't, in my mind, think I can leave these two 5-year-olds at home being tutored and think that we can continue to make progress having them in a home setting. Because they needed to be with their peers to make gains. So bringing them here on a modified day and then increasing that modified day and then changing it to a 3/4 day, then adding in the integration into the traditional classroom. We've increased those demands over the last, so they've been with us 8 weeks. We've increased those demands over the last 8 weeks. The next transition is to go to full day.
And hopefully we'll be almost, we do have, a possible candidate, so, we have some leads and we're hoping to have it
Yeah, and
going.
it'll be good for everybody to be able to have that opportunity. So I don't know if you want me to go into more in detail on the continuum, but the
No, I think
continuum.
when it comes time, if there are
Self-explanatory.
questions, because it is similar to our previous continuums. We did talk about the new program. That was the primary goal was, and I know we talked about it a little bit before, just to justify the cost of, we posted a teacher and the cost, and we did talk about the break even, really break even at 2 students. So if we can, create that classroom, have a good model, we do anticipate by the end of the year having 4 students in there. So already, if we were sending out all 4 of those students, that would be more costly than this model, but it is a waiting game, and we have to have a lot of patience to find the right person to be in there.
Any questions?
Thank you. So yeah, if when the continuum comes up, you have another question. Katie, can you just share those slides with Gina so she can
Yes.
attach them
Yes,
just
I have.
to the public? And then also
And the continuum,
Karen
yeah.
Fraunhofer's, Gina, I forgot to mention that. Well, we can attach Karen's also for the public, anybody who might watch later. If they want to go back and refer to them, they can go in. Thank you. So just a few other quick comments. I've got a lot of different agendas here. My notes. I just had 2 other quick things to report out. Just an update, on literacy standards. So a few years ago, the board approved, HMH as our integrating curriculum, and our, last year, was our first year of the into math curriculum. So we are, on our way, in terms of integrating that and really becoming committed to both of those curriculums, K through 6, and we're talking about in 7 and 8 for the English ELA, just to have that continuity. But you may or may not have heard, New York State has been talking a lot over the past year or 2 about the science of reading, and have focused on pre-K through 3 literacy standards. Katie and I just went to a workshop on that. And they basically, the standards leverage the principles of the science of reading. So the science of reading isn't a program, it's more of a concept in terms of what the principles are, and in essence, what they call pillars. So they call their pillars the big 6 of literacy standards and pillars. So phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and oral language. So I feel that we were lucky to have the opportunity to have access to ARP money, that the board agreed and approved that curriculum for HMH into reading. It is one of the curriculums that embodies all of these standards and is, something I think, Katie and I were just talking about. New York City, they have 3 approved curriculums, and that is one of them, and they did a big science-based kind of look at the curriculums to make sure that they were in line as well. So we're working on that. So New York State requires that we do a self-assessment review of our curriculum. We do know, because we just basically did our search a few years ago, that our curriculum does have everything it needs to meet these pillars and the standards and expectations within them. However, I think because we're growing into this new curriculum, that we are still going to go through the self-assessments and look at where the gaps are, because there's a lot to this curriculum. It's a lot to unpack and implement and support with our teachers. So we'll be taking a look between now and September, doing that assessment. Are there gaps? What do we need to do to make a plan to close those gaps? By September 1st, every superintendent has to attest that we've reviewed our curriculum, that we reviewed our implementation, that we've identified any gaps, and we have a plan to remedy those. And so that is something that we will have to submit in September, that attestation, that we've done that review. And then I anticipate that 4 through 6 will be coming shortly thereafter as the next project. So I just wanted to give you, if you do hear about that, because it is starting to come into the countdown for that, you will be hearing it. That is on our radar, and we're working on it, and we are positioned well. It's just continuing that support and the work to really use it to the fullest, to benefit our students. The only other thing I have tonight is that our BOCES, Wish We BOCES, has 6 board seats coming up. And if any of our board members are interested, I know Peter, in the past, you had contemplated, if you're interested in putting in for one of those seats to be on the ballot, this Board of Education would need to pass a resolution to nominate one of your members or somebody in the community. It does not have to be a board member. And we would need to have that by, I think, the 3rd week of March. So if someone has an interest, you should let Gina know, and/or Ann, and we can, the full board, if you want to talk about it later, for the opportunities for the board to be heard. So then we would put that resolution on our March
You should propose somebody.
agenda and then move forward. So think about that for discussion later. All right, that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Anybody have questions for the superintendent? Move on to, at this opportunity, I'd like to open up the meeting for public comment. If there's anybody who would like to address a comment to the board, if you would come up to the podium and identify yourself and share your comment with us. We do try to keep the limit, we'd have limited people here, so I think we should be all right with our time.
It's a first.
There will be another comment session at the end of the meeting if anybody would like to share something. Moving on to our consent agenda, does anybody wish to remove an item for the consent agenda? Entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Peter. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 5-0. The committee reports. First, we did have there's finance committees first, but we did have our workshop last night, so.
Yeah, finance did meet last week too, but most of what we discussed was what we discussed last night, so there really isn't a lot more. Yeah, I think to report, so.
Budget,
Yeah.
it's budget season, I'm sorry.
Well, we should say,
Finance focus.
we decided not to meet at the end of February with that meeting. We're gonna wait till we're done with budget to meet as finance again. So
Right, until,
so everybody's aware what's going
right,
on.
And, once our Long Ranch analysis is ready to go, we might do a quick meeting beforehand, depending on the timing of it, how it fits in with the budget timeline,
If we
but
can weave them together perfectly, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
it would be.
It'll work out perfect.
Just have to get our third party, hopefully he can help us with that.
Did the policy committee?
We will meet, the 26th, right?
We figure we'd let finance committee harass you all for a few weeks there.
Right, we're cleaning up a lot still.
Safety committee have a meeting today?
So we did have a safety
Yeah,
committee,
there could be,
at the end of January. We are meeting the week after, at the end of February. And so right now, we're just focusing on, some professional developments, just really, looking at, cleaning up our opioid prevention, some of our emergency response procedures, and opioid prevention program. And then we're gonna hopefully talk about a tabletop activity before the end of the school year, which is kind of like a mock
Yeah.
disaster scenario where you kind of put it on the table per se and kind of work through how would we deal with that and then, you know, kind of troubleshoot, is there anything we're not thinking of, or we haven't thought of this and we need to work on it. So Needham Risk Management, our risk management company that we work with, they would lead that. And they assist us with a lot of the safety planning. So it's where we are right now.
Interesting, activity to take part in, just.
Yes,
You will
yes.
probably find things you hadn't thought.
Yes, and we are very fortunate, and I really just want to give a shout out to a lot of our first responder agencies, that Washington County, is there at every meeting. The fire chief Salem Fire Chief has been coming to our meetings. I know they're all very busy. Vicky comes from EMS when she can, but, you know, they're all very accessible. And we've had a great turnout, our faculty, staff, we have a very committed group, so, that's not common everywhere, so we really appreciate that in our community.
Much appreciated.
we have the board norms ad hoc. Well,
Yes, we-
we have a draft, working draft, and Regina, have you updated it? So I have to do my piece.
so actually that does, bring us up to that, because we would like to poll people as far as availability. It's time to really bring the work that we've started to put together for comment. It's now open to have everybody. We've kind of pared down what we think are good starting point for conversation. So we're talking about planning a workshop. We're looking at no more than an hour and a half or 2 hours on a given day. So we're just trying to find some common time for people. So you could be thinking about your schedules, if there's anything that we should block out and not work on. I'm not sure what people think about Saturdays, if you want to do an evening or Saturday. Yeah.
I've been told no.
So, You're part of the committee. Open up ourselves to some.
Never working Saturdays out.
So if you would be thinking about that, we'll get an email out
Yeah.
to people to kind of,
Okay.
I know it's kind of tough to think about your schedule right now, but that becoming that, we'd
Yeah.
like to do that because it's time. And then to find out what you would like to see on the onboarding side, what kinds of documents would have been helpful to you as you were coming on.
Right.
Those kinds of things, so we can get that together.
Are we going to meet again before that, or?
We can, I think depending on the day, I would say,
Yeah, depending
probably
on-
just looking at the draft and.
So look at the draft and send out.
And
Very
the-
interested to see what you've come up with.
and the negotiations, we're working on timelines, get people together, so.
Yeah, for Westia, so the service employees. We're due to negotiate that contract. And
So we'll be,
yeah, it's coming up.
You'll be busy.
any other committee report? All right, moving on to personnel. Entertain a motion to approve the following appointments. Brittany McFarland as a full-time special education teacher aide, effective February 3rd, 2025. She is currently a part-time teacher aide. And Bridget Dusha as the girls varsity softball coach for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Motion by Peter,
Second.
second by John. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Entertain a motion to rescind the following appointments. Lisa Tabor, teacher aide, original appointment on January 15th, 2025. And Zachary Eastman, advisor for Dungeons and Dragons, original appointment on July 10th, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by John,
Second.
second by Peter. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Entertain a motion to accept the following resignations. Colleen O'Malley, speech therapist for the purpose of retirement, effective June 30th, 2025. Colleen has taught for 34 years. Paula Bourgeois, kindergarten teacher for the purpose of retirement, effective June 30th, 2025. Paula has taught for 38 years,
So
which is 72 years of service to our children.
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful?
Did either of you guys have Ms. Bourgeois?
No, but I believe she's the last staff member that was here when I was a student.
Yeah, she was here when I was a student, but she wasn't teaching
So-
kindergarten, or I think she was like a reading teacher originally, maybe. Yeah.
Didn't always have kids.
Yeah.
So moved.
We do read. And they are wonderful ladies and will be,
Tremendous.
Yes.
all those in favor, wishing them a happy retirement.
Very sad.
Say, I was just gonna say, sadly,
Yeah,
good for them.
I think to say resignation. but we can give it. I know it's official. All right, so the next two, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to drone on for a bit, so I apologize. Entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECR, for the remediation of renovations to and replacement of the roofing system. Following resolution, whereas the Board of Education of Salem Central School District, the board, is considering to undertake a capital project consisting of remediation of, renovations to, and replacements of the roofing systems at its primary building and elementary high school building, and associated work including insulation, masonry, and flashing work. This will be known as the proposed action. And whereas the board wishes to fully comply with its obligations under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECR, and the regulations thereunder with respect to the proposed action. And whereas the board has carefully considered the nature and scope of the proposed action, and whereas upon review of the foregoing, the board makes the following determinations. 1, the proposed action involves certain improvements, renovations, upgrades, and replacements to the school district's existing school buildings as set forth above. 2, the board hereby declares the school district as the lead agency for purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and regulations associated with the proposed action. The proposed action represents maintenance or repairs involving no substantial changes in an existing structure or facility within the meaning of Title VI, New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Section 617, 5C1. The replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of the structure of facilities in kind within the meaning of Title VI, New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Section 617.5C2, and or a routine activity of an educational institution, including expansion of existing facilities by less than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area within the meaning of Title VI, New York Codes, Rules, Regulations, Section 617.5C10. Number 4, the proposed action will in no case have a significant adverse impact on the environment based on the criteria contained in Title VI, New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Section 617.7C, and is not otherwise a type 1 action as defined by Title VI, New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Section 617.4. Number 5, the proposed action is a type 2 action within the meaning of the code and regulations, and therefore is not subject to review under SECA and the regulations thereunder. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board finds and concludes that the proposed action
is a type 2 action within the meaning of Title 6 New York Codes, Rules and Regulations, Section 617.5, and therefore is not subject to review under seeker and the regulations thereunder.
Can you explain all this to me?
Are we sure it's a type 2?
So moved.
Motion by Peter.
Seconded.
Seconded by Joe.
We went through that whole thing to get to that last paragraph.
There you go.
Said none of that above counts.
Right, and so this is put together by the school attorney.
Mhm.
And the architect and the school attorney determined that it's a type 2 based on the law and the regulation, the law, being that it's a roof project. And so it has determined, and, you know, obviously our school attorney would not propose this resolution if it was not legal. So, it is a proposed action as type 2. It's the level of impact that it has on the environment. And so, it's not subject to some of the other, if it was a higher impact project, it would have other, criteria that we would have to meet and, take some additional actions before we could go through the project. So, so there's impact, but it's a low impact. And I can share the link with you if you would like to do some reading on seeker.
I see that.
But,
Oh, please.
Rules and regulations.
Trust your attorneys, that's why they're there.
I do think it, you know, for all municipal action like this, that this is a required component.
Mhm.
isn't it?
right, and a lot of it is, you know, whether or not it will, our usage, our material that we're using, what we're building, does it kind of conflict with the use of the land that it's approved for? Does it impair the character or quality of the community? Does it have impact, environmentally, like in a critical way? So obviously, we're replacing our roofs, and they're probably better than the material used, you know, 50 years ago. So some of those are pretty old. So, hopefully that helps a little bit about what's going on. Start to-
Okay.
Any further questions or concerns? All those in favor of motion, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Okay, next one. Entertain a motion that the Board of Education adopt the following proposition to undertake a capital project. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of Salem Central School District that the following proposition be presented to the voters at the annual meeting of the school district to be held on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Such proposition. Shall the Board of Education of the Salem Central School District be authorized to undertake a capital project consisting of 1, remediation of, renovations to, and replacement of the roofing systems at various school buildings and facilities and associated work at a maximum aggregate cost of $8,150,000. 2, expend such sum for such purpose, including the expenditure of $1,500,000 from the capital reserve fund. 3, levy the necessary tax therefore to be levied and collected in annual installments in such years and in such amounts as may be determined by the Board of Education from time to time. Count state aid in the amount to be expended from the capital reserve fund. And 4, in anticipation of the collection of such tax, issue bonds and notes of the school district at one time or from time to time in the principal amount not to exceed $6,650,000, and the levy of a tax to pay the interest on said obligations when due. Be it further resolved that the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to include notice of such proposition in the notice of the annual school district meeting. And be it further resolved that this resolution take effect immediately.
So moved.
Motion by Peter,
Second.
second by John. That is the legal language that we need to put before the voters on.
Very good.
All those in favor of accepting the resolution, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5.
Yes.
This one I will say, entertain a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the ROC to negotiate data privacy agreements with vendors and third-party contracts on behalf of the district as presented in the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Second by Peter.
So does everybody,
No.
understand what this, so this is, so I'm the data, privacy officer for the district. We do, subscribe or, we pay for, the service, data privacy service through Wishwe BOCES as well. Part of the data privacy, responsibilities, of the district are to comply with FERPA, the Federal Education, Rights and Protection Act. That's related to education. That's a federal privacy. New York State, as often they do, New York State often imposes stricter licensure, stricter regulations and on things as they have the right to do so. So New York State has what's called Ed Law 2D, and it is an additional layer of privacy regulations for students. One of those is, with this day and age of online use of different apps, subscriptions. The simplest way is to explain this is if Mason, if we have an app that we want Mason to log into as part for instruction. So we have, say, Seesaw. It's an app that some of the kids use that Mrs. Fraunhofer has a lot of apps and software that she uses through the library. And so we have a right to protect Mason. Mason has a right to expect the privacy of his, it's called PPI, personal information. So that can be disclosed when he logs in. So even if he logs in using our school Google account, so a lot of times you can get in and log in through Google. So you might see that in your own day-to-day activities that you can use your Apple ID or your Google ID to log into something instead of creating an account. We have to make sure that there's guaranteed protections. And so there is New York State requires that we get assurances from every single app developer or software company that they are protecting the information of our students if we're going to let them log in. And if we don't have that guarantee, we cannot use it. And so there's so many apps, software that we're using now. We were trying to, so if Karen Fraunhofer wants to use something, she'll ask me. We call it the green light list. Is it on the green light list? Does BOCES already have an agreement? So because we were working with the data privacy service at BOCES, they would do it for us and we were in this little consortium. Bigger school districts, they do it on their own. So South Glens Falls, Saratoga, they do it on their own. They get all these agreements. It's so cumbersome for school districts that we're possibly missing out on opportunities. So this now is, I was at a training the other day. They're taking everything in this RIC, this information center. So we belong to Northeast Regional Information Center, NARIC. This RIC-1 Risk Operations Center, they're kind of going to be the point. They're going to house all the information for all the data privacy agreements for the state. And then we can piggyback onto it. So if I want to use, so now if Karen says, hey, I want to use Karen's Rainbow app, then I can just go in and, another district has the agreement, I can piggyback onto it and I can say that we can use it. So, it's just giving them the right to, make sure the insurances are in place on our behalf, so what, I don't have to do it.
So assurances, sure, like an agreements and things of that nature, the legalese, are they performing audits? And all of our vendors, a lot of times now, in vendor relationships, substantial ones where data is shared, you can expect to audit these vendors. Simply evaluating their financials shows if they're fiscally capable of keeping their systems sound and intact. Will this rise to the level of an audit in ensuring that all of our vendors are not only signing agreements, but actually being proactive and ensuring that everyone's data is protected?
It's rising to the level, they signed a legal agreement that they're giving those assurances to, according to New York State education law.
Yeah.
So.
Are they required to share information that they're in
What is
compliance
required?
with these vendors?
I have to go with the detail of the law.
Yeah. That's just some of the stuff that I'm starting to see in my world is, and it's not just agreements, but also reaching in and evaluating their abilities to protect your data. Yeah, and
Well, they have to meet a certain criteria according to the law.
Yeah.
To get on this, like,
On the
on
list.
the list, yeah.
so that's good. There's a higher level of,
And I can
Assurance.
send you a link to the law. I mean, the law is pretty extensive, so I'm not really sure what.
But this isn't really doing anything in relation to the law. It's just simply saying that NERIC is,
They're getting the insurance, we're piggybacking onto the assurances that they've collected.
right, but
Their BOCES and other.
yeah, NERIC is going to these other four BOCES. They're basically turning the reins of control over to those other four BOCES.
They're basically housing it for the
Right.
entire state.
Right, that's all.
so you,
So if you don't do it, if we don't
like, we
If
can't.
we don't participate in, I
We're gonna do it all
physically, I
ourselves.
Yeah,
can't do
no,
it.
no way.
Yeah.
And I'm the data privacy officer and we already subscribe to wish we
Yeah.
help us with data privacy. We'd have to employ probably 4 or 5 more people
At
to
least.
do all the things that occur through here. And,
But my follow-up question would be, are you doing more than simply jumping onto their agreement? Is there some assurance that an audit, that, their systems are being evaluated, or they're, presenting their systems to this team to ensure that they're highly effective in protecting our data?
they have to give it to attestations under the law. Right.
Good.
Right.
So that's,
Yeah, and then it's our job, my job here is to make sure that we're not using and having our kids log into anything that's not on the list.
that's enough.
But I will tell you, that's very difficult right now because of how it's housed.
It makes-
And this will make it much easier that I
Oh,
can just go in. So Karen or another teacher or principal is asking me, can we get this? I can say, yes, we're good to go.
Yeah.
And so we piggyback on and it dumps into an archive that actually, I believe that we'll be able to share on our website. At a certain point, but that's right now, we subscribe and buy into Google Suite. And there's a foundational package for the education suite that is guaranteed to be EdLog to be compliant, but things like YouTube, they have a lot of what they call add-ons now that they will not. So New York State's one state, right? And they're like, listen, we're not doing all of these extra things that New York State wants to do. We're federally compliant. We have the federal guarantee, and because they will not attest to the criteria under EdLaw 2D, that's why now, we cannot have kids directly go into some of those add-ons. We can provide access to them through the teacher's Google Classroom, but Mason could log on his own login at home, but he cannot log in through us. Unless some kids have tried to find workarounds, then we gotta turn them off. So, they're smarter than all of us put together a lot of the times, but that's the idea, is that because New York State is one state that has this stricter requirement than the federal requirement, some companies are saying, we're not doing it. And then we have to make a decision about whether or not.
In the the resolution, it does say that that we authorize the Risk Operations Center to enter into data privacy agreements and related exhibits with vendors and third-party contractors that include the requirements of and compliance with New York State Education Law, Section 2D and Part 1.1 regulations collected. So that relate not only to personally identifiable information for students, but also teachers and principals, if you get our data. So it's not, it protects the data of just any person here at school.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. But it seems like they're focusing on making sure that they have the agreements that align with the law in New York State, which is what our responsibility is to make sure that we are in compliance with the law.
Right, and then this will make it easier for us to do that.
And it should be our responsibility. There should be an easier way to do it.
Well, in the end, it is our responsibility, but we don't have the manpower to do it at the district level. And it is financially makes sense to, it's a consortium, again, it's a consortium of data that we belong to. And we don't have to do that work on our own. Even larger districts are joining in.
This is simply another example of regionalization.
I was just gonna say, we would consider this an example of regionalization, right?
100%.
Beautiful.
Any additional questions or concerns? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Next, agreement approval. Entertain a motion to approve the agreement with Nourishing Minds Tutoring effective February 7th, 2025.
I forgot to remove this at the
Oh,
beginning.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. The attorney, recommended a little bit of like, just some fine tuning of the language. It's back with Nourishing Mind, but we did not get it back in time. I don't want to rush it, so we're gonna remove this. And we'll hold it either for a special meeting or for next meeting. So just so tweaking a little bit of language as I had answered John's question on that. I was trying to do it simultaneously to get it in, but with Jennifer. I forgot to remove it at the beginning. So it'll be coming up. Katie's just working at the fine tune two things.
So, moving on to the continuum of special education. Entertain a motion to adopt the continuum of special education for the 25-26 school year as attached.
So, second,
Is there any other information that you want to share with that, or what's the information from?
No, just, again, very similar to our past continuums. We had just, few tweaks and changes just based on our needs over the past few years, giving us some flexibility and, adding that new program in just so that we can offer that and the board has approved that as a program.
having been intimately involved with the special education process for many, many years. I just want to compliment Katie on how thorough this consortium is and how easily understood it is. So,
We'll piggyback on that. There's a lot of additional information. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Helping to understand what you were focusing on in each one of those areas.
I can say, not having been involved with special education for years, I appreciate how easy to understand it is, so, thank you.
Yeah, because it's for everyone, right? Our families.
Yeah.
Not only for the board, but our families, to understand what we have to offer students and talking about the types of environments that the students would be in is important for them to feel comfortable and know and understand what might be recommended
Yeah.
by our related service providers or teachers by Katie, so.
It's particularly important this year because our indicator for the upcoming year is that we survey parents on their satisfaction with special education. So making sure that they understand the placements and the services their kids have from the get-go is really important.
And just so you understand, that piece is every year, New York State. So New York State can come in and audit you and your programming anytime, but there are different, what they call indicators. And each year, there's a different indicator that a school district gets rated on. So when it could be transition planning, it could be how you write your IEP goals. And so it is to ensure standardization and compliance across the board. So we are always being audited in some fashion. So they give you about a year's notice on what they're going to audit, what the indicator is, and then what the components are. And I found it to be very constructive. It's not, it is to ensure compliance, but sometimes, we've been in situations where we've had transition in Katie's role. And they say, listen, this is something that you need to do better. This is what you need to work on. We give our faculty some training, we rewrite it, we're learning too. So, this is all part of it and it's good. Hopefully we'll do a good job with that survey piece.
I think one of the things that I found most useful in this is that, for a parent walking in for the first time, the explanation of what the continuum of services is makes it very clear as to how we're determining the least restrictive environment and what that environment is. It may not be the mainstream classroom, it may be because here's why. And it is very clear in there as to what those criteria are. So,
It's not just because you had a feeling.
yeah,
It's-
as a teacher, I sat on many a CSE meeting and had many a parent questioning that, and it's a difficult thing to explain to someone. I just understand that completely, but this, reading through those, it's like, whoa, that makes sense. I think that the parent coming in for the first time would see that, or at least be guided in that direction.
Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries 5-0. We have about 6 policies that we have been working with. Does anybody want to separate out one of the policies according to the questions and concerns?
Can I request that the board consider waiving the second read on the Title IX and moving to adoption? I can't do that, but I would.
I think we should consider waiving the second read on all of them. Actually, I don't think any of us had any problems with them last time either, so I don't think there's any reason to.
I wasn't sure if it was the first or second. reading.
No, there's a little, I just noticed that there's a little typo.
Oh,
It's the 2 ST. Instead of first, it's like this.
okay.
I don't know how you pronounce that.
The second.
The 2.
The two's reading. Two's already in the.
There you go.
The second.
So I entertain a motion to waive the second read on
Policy.
the 6 policies listed in the agenda and move to adopting those 6.
So moved.
Motion by John.
Second.
By Peter. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Just have some work to do with Title IX and I have to give a link to the policy, so if
It's better.
you get it, better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the following building use request. The Salem Area Women's Club is requesting use of the cafeteria, refrigerators, and 6 classrooms on May 2nd, 2025 for their 28th annual Women's Day Health Day. As well as possible, will provide insurance for the day.
So moved.
Motion by Peter,
Second.
John. 28 years, well, I've been doing it a long time.
Oh, wow.
It's a nice, nice. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. Entertain a motion to amend the 2024-25 calendar to include a superintendent's conference day on March 17th, 2025.
So moved.
So,
Is
yeah,
Comment.
that,
I think we said important. So we can do it.
sorry,
Oh,
You
we
have to work on this one.
just went over it.
we'll go back up. Thank you. This is, I sorry, I did skip over that. So 7.9.
We have a
We
motion.
do have.
We have a motion and a second, so
Motion
it's on the table,
to amend the 24-25 calendar to include superintendent's conference day.
Moved and seconded.
Moved and
Yeah,
seconded.
moved and
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Any other
Okay.
questions about that?
No.
So we are all voting on.
I skipped over
Yes,
Juneteenth.
yes.
Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0.
Okay.
For catching that.
There we go.
Entertain a motion to approve closing the district offices on June 19th for each school year that the observance falls on a school day or Juneteenth.
Awesome.
Peter, second on.
And so this is just, so we're working on updating the WASIA contract. Some of our, management confidential agreements were approved at different times. And, Karen and I talked about doing some updates to all the terms and conditions, just to kind of get all these in here, but it just, allows us to catch up in our different, agreements with different, units to make sure that we've got it covered to be closed on that day and give everyone the day off. So really, that's what
We wouldn't have to vote on it every year.
No.
You're
That's
saying.
right, that's
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
my probably
I know, I just-
next year, most likely by next year,
Last year
it'll
we
be in
voted
all
on
the agreements, but just in case.
It should still be a federal holiday next year.
May.
May, yeah.
It's like you're drugged into that.
Back to calendar.
Right, and that's just the observance.
Entertain a motion to adopt the calendar for the 25-26 school year.
Yeah.
For people who may have looked at the agenda earlier, they're in the copy and they see some.
So just, Gina and I had our drafts crossed a little bit, so, there were 2 additional conference days, so one on October 10th, and one in March 16th, superintendent's conference day. So New York State education law allows for up to 4 superintendent's conference days to count towards, the, the 180 days, sorry, getting late. So we did add that in, to the calendar, so half days count towards 180 days, so we're taking 4 full days. This is important, we've talked over the past few years, it has not always occurred for superintendent's conference days. And as I discussed earlier, I talked to the faculty and staff, we are expecting a lot of change. And new curriculums, the state is changing curriculum, adding requirements, adding mandatory trainings. And I think it's really important that we can provide as much professional development as possible in utilizing all 4 of those days. So that's why this is the first year we're actually putting 4 on the calendar. As you can see, I just added a 4th for this year, and I'd like to just add that in. And then the other thing is that usually the last 2 days we have half days for the elementary schools, so those are reflected by the upside down triangles.
And I apologize, I'm way from, I might really hear that my motion since I stepped over 7.8. I do need a motion. for that.
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
I got it.
Second.
Second. for Peter. And we-
I apologize, I get
Oh, no,
excited
that's
about
fine.
it.
All
I'm
good.
kind of off my mood here. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried 5-0. And there, I think that's the end of the day. So moving on to other business. So Macy, thank you for being so patient with us as we did.
So we're skipping the budget discussion.
Oh, right.
Whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, we would give Mason a chance.
Yes.
And the chance to-
Be bored to death with that.
Hello, everybody. So, yeah, quite a few things to talk about, especially now that we didn't have a 2-week break in between things. First of all, for general, I noticed that on the last meeting, the 2 cameras we have over here, I'm gonna put it simply, they were having a seizure. They were flashing all sorts of different colors. I don't know if that's normal, but
The
just wanna-
recording was weird too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanna keep that in mind for future recordings. I don't know if it was plugged in all the way or not. But anyway, I'm also glad to see that the website is constantly being updated now. Thank you, Anna Hurley. I especially noticed today that they posted the 2nd quarter high honor and honor roll students, which I haven't seen those posted in at least a year now. So I'm very happy to see that they made their return. In the elementary, I don't have a lot on this one, but I heard it happened some point, I believe last month. There were a lot of fights in the elementary. I do not know a lot of information on that. That's just all I've heard about. I hope they are getting settled. The Ronald McDonald House reading program ended with over $2,000 raised from Salem alone. And
My daughter, $500. Oh my God. We're ready to come up with that.
Very glad to see. And then the school's cool book bag program for kindergarten and preschool students started. Preschool and kindergarten students receive books to read with their families. I'm very glad to see because we always need our students to start reading very well and very young. In high school, the classes of 2025 and 2026 are about to finish collecting for our prom fundraiser. We are selling strawberries and cheesecakes. And while I'm here, I might as well mention that prices for 2 1-pound boxes of strawberries are $9, $17 for 4, $33 for 8, and $20 for cheesecake. Let me just tell you, they go well together if you want to buy any.
Board meeting.
So anyway, if anyone wants to buy some from me, you know, I'll be here for a little bit.
Friday.
I'm sorry.
We'll see me, Jason, or Friday. We'll see what the weather man.
And then the class of 2028 had a basket bingo. I believe I heard that it went well and that I believe I heard they raised about $1,800 for their class, which is very nice to hear. The 2027 Glow Dance occurred, which I believe was also the pajama dance that they had. I asked the 2027 class of treasurers, Addison Cossey, how it went, and she said it went very well, so I'm very glad to hear. I learned from last time, and I mentioned wrestling in my report this time. So I'm not sure exactly where this came from. All I know is that my mom got it from somewhere. So putting it simply, they lost 5 matches in a row at some point between Wayne and Salem Cambridge, 48-19. The team came back very strongly in the next match, winning 8 of the 13 matches. Salem Cambridge 44 to Governor 29. That doesn't look like our school. And they're giving a huge thank you to all fans and families who made the trip to Syracuse to support the teams. And to thank you to all who are a part of the wrestling community and to all those who are striving to become better wrestlers, teammates, and better people. So I'm very glad to hear that they are doing well. And as well as give me one moment while I open a screenshot. I heard from Megan Adams, that a lot of scores have been good. For example, not all last names are here, I apologize. I'm assuming Luke LeBlanc with 1, Justin Haven with 3, Oliver Hegland with 3 wins, Nathan Havens with 2, Ethan Adams 3, Henry with 1, Jacob 3, Cooper 5, Isaiah 2, Tanner 3, Camden 1, and Salem was first as a team by almost 100 points. And then in girls wrestling, a lot of girls placed and they won. The team scored by over 50. So very impressive to hear from both teams. I also heard that Salem's Parley Quo or Pro meeting is moving on to sub-states. I tried to ask a student about how this turned out, but I did not receive any messages, so I am going to report on it again come March to see how they went from there. I've mentioned it pretty much every meeting now, the track merger, but this time it's actually good. I heard that they had a meeting during a lunch period sometime a few weeks ago, and it turns out that it is working out well and that they are happy with how it is turning out. But I would like to stress the fact that it would probably be better for future mergers to be in more context with the students and be more translucent about what will be happening in future mergers. Future events, we're having our winter break from February 15th to the 23rd. Our 100th day of school is on February 24th. It's crazy that it's already gone by so fast. The first mock trial case is February 27th, I believe, in Warren County's court. I am not sure if it is the prosecuting team going first or the defense team, but either way, first case February 27th. And then the 6th grade play of 101 Dalmatians is happening March 7th and 8th. And I asked the 6th grade backstage manager, Socrates Fraunhofer II, how he believed it was going, and he said that it is very well, and all of the kids are very enthusiastic about performing for the community. You know, while I'm thinking of it, it's not too late to get a copy of the 2025 Washingtonian Yearbook. The cost of the yearbook is still $50. We did not raise the price this year because we have enough money. And this year's edition is filled with a lot of great photos as usual, and the cover is even made by one of our own seniors, Natalie Gallagher, which has not been done in the years that I've been in school. It's always been made by the yearbook company themselves. And additionally, 25 little generals are scattered throughout the book for you to find.
Oh, that's cool.
And of course, for Salem alumni or friends of Salem Central School, you can put your name into the yearbook for just a small donation of $10. And that's all I have for tonight.
If you don't get into the STEM world of, you could always be a spokesperson. You're very good. That's very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Jason has every yearbook from kindergarten to.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was his idea, not ours.
Got a good voice for it too. You could do a voiceover and some. So thanks.
Thank you for that. It was very good.
It was good. Thank you.
About the elementary as well, so. So back to business. We did have our workshop last night for the budget. Were there any other questions or concerns that people had an opportunity, as you were thinking about the information that was shared?
No longer, I think.
Really, yeah.
No, but I was just gonna, for everybody here, if they haven't watched the recording or anything, I think to talk a little about the bus situation for next year is worth putting in front of people. For anybody who doesn't know, New York State has a requirement that schools start buying electric buses in 5 years, is it? 3 years? I don't know.
After 2026.
Like, so 2026, yeah.
Longer purchase.
So
Yes,
you can
yes.
no longer purchase, non-electric buses. So the proposal from the administration, which I fully support, is that instead of leasing buses with this spring's vote, we're going to be buying buses. So that the district actually owns the buses, and when the lease runs out, they don't go back to the leasing company and forced to buy an electric bus if we wanted to keep a bus for a year at about $500,000 a bus. So understanding that because of that, you will not be voting separately for a bus lease, but that money for the buses is going to be in the regular budget, which means you may look at a number on the budget line that looks like a bigger percentage increase because it's not factoring in that money that we were spending on bus leases this year in there. So I don't know, I probably did that very poorly.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's important to make the public aware of it so they're not surprised when it gets in front of them.
And we'll cover that when we do
When we
our,
present it too,
our hearing and our budget talk, but I do think it's important to bring that up because
That's the best.
it just gives us more flexibility to be on the back end, the very back end, if we so choose, which I recommend, of the EV bus transition. Because purchasing that bus, we now should get at least 10 years, 10 to 12 years from the bus that we purchased, as opposed to if we either way, the taxpayers are contributing tax levy towards buses. If we lease it, then we're leasing the bus. It's a separate proposition. So it's just voting on two pots of money instead of just putting the buses in. And what happens is at the end of that 5 years, we have to give the bus back. And so we vote in the spring, we would get the bus most likely in September of July, right? But it'd be this year, 2025. So in 2030, we now would have to buy an electric bus because we're going to need to replace that bus. And it just gives us more time to not have to fully transition our fleet, to be able to transition it gradually. And maybe have a hybrid fleet if that is where the state continues the direction. I think there is some, there are some concerns among rural communities that, we can't sustain a full fleet. financially because we would need additional buses to make all our runs, to make sports runs that are further away. So this gives us a lot more time before we have to fully transition on our site and our infrastructure. Tentatively, it looks like we can support 2 EV buses without redoing our bus garage or the infrastructure around our bus garage. So even if that in the next 5 years, we purchase 2, we can sustain that without much capital. But if we get more than 2, then we need to do a project on our bus garage. And as we've been talking about in the capital, we want to have a capital plan that we can integrate, maintenance requirements, but also some additions to program. I talked about our Dream for Technology, and I know we have a lot of, there are some other things on the list as well. So I don't want to be boxed into then having no choices in our next capital project as well. So it is a 1-year kind of increase because we're putting it back into the general fund as opposed to voting on the lease separately. So we will, thank you for bringing that up, as it's a good to get it out there and get it on the radar, and we'll continue to talk about it.
Any other opportunities for the board to be heard?
I've got something. All right, here's my pitch. So we're talking about all these training days, and training days are not fun for the parents, especially the half days. But the Bromley Outing Club has a solution. Jen loves the Bromley Outing Club because she gets to send her kids to Bromley over in Arlington and receive training while her kids are skiing. Currently, the Bromley Outing Club has 1,000 kids that go to their mountain for 8 weeks from the first week of January to, say, like the second week of March. I love the organization. It's incredibly well run. I dig nonprofits. I analyze them. I'm on lots of boards. I love this one. They are very interested in Salem. They already have Paulet, they have Arlington, they have Rupert, they have Dorset, they have Manchester. And it's also a really neat opportunity to make friends over there. I grew up with all my friends being from Rupert. My kids don't get the same opportunity. And now my kids are making friends with Rupert and Paulet kids. The cost per child is extremely cheap. It's $150 for 16 trips to the mountain. You get free tickets on Sundays. You can get free skis. You just ask. All of these Salem kids could go skiing and learn how to ski extremely cheaply. It's the best deal in town. Their only concern is making sure they have some additional support. They love it when teachers want to take the kids to Bromley. But Salem already has boots on the ground. I teach, your son-in-law teaches, Armstrong teaches, Colburn's are there, Siklowski's are there, the hardware store's there, Sawhill's there, New Collar Goods is there. There are a lot of folks that are involved in Bromley Outing Club from Salem already. It's a great opportunity to bring there are schools that bring busloads of kids every week. It's a great opportunity for us. They don't care that we're New Yorkers. It's also a day where the kids go skiing instead of going home is not fun. What do they do? I'd rather have them go skiing. So I'd love for the school to consider Bromley Outing Club for next year. I think it's a really neat opportunity. It's a great way to bring training into the school for the teachers, but also get the kids outside skiing. And it's extremely, extremely, extremely affordable. Great program.
Next year so the half days are in October.
Yeah. But
So I can just speak from my own experience, since you threw me out there, Tom. Thanks. I've worked in Vermont schools, and so a lot of schools participate in the junior instructional ski program. They have JISP days for 8 weeks in the wintertime. And in the schools that I've worked in, kids leave half day. It's like some schools are Wednesdays, some are Fridays, and they go to the mountain.
Yeah.
For the prices that you've said or whatever.
Yeah.
And typically those schools have their PD days on those half days.
Gotcha. So
I think that's where he was going with.
So we do have, our ski club, and that might be something for them to look into, and then I guess over time,
So those half days in the beginning in October are usually for parent-teacher conference, which has been preferred to do afternoons and or evenings, so I'm not sure ideally that we would be able to do parent-teacher conferences that late, but I guess maybe taking the full days,
Those are usually like
dividing them
additional
into
days
half
in my
days or something
experience.
like that. But I think maybe the place to start would be with the ski club possibly.
I mean, they have the operations. I mean, Ski Club goes to Willard, and I don't know if there are any operations there to support such an endeavor. Bromley Outing Club already has 1,000 kids going up there every week during school hours. There are robust operations. There are people all over the mountains with bright vests on, ensuring that the kids are well, well overseen. It's.
That's during school hours, you said?
Mhm. Yeah, we leave school at 11:30. Rochelle's do, Armstrong's do, and we take them up. They're on the hill by 1 o'clock. They pick up their skis and they go. I have a kindergartner and 2 fourth graders.
So I think, it's something to look into is how we might be able to support that as an option for half days. I would say that I'd have to check our school attorney to see if, I'm not sure we can recommend that students miss portions of their 180 days of instruction. I'm not sure, I guess that's why if it's through a club or something like that, then it's a school activity. So it intrigues me, but I think,
It's an
we would
amazing
have to,
opportunity.
if they're using it, if they're doing half-day PD days and then kind of, hey, here's an option, you can,
Yeah.
and again, we can't transport, so a lot of people might not be able to transport on half-day, so again, it would have to be through a club or some type of related sanctioned activity, so I think it has merit, but there's a certain way, at least in New York State, that we would have to go.
Yeah, in Vermont, they can transport students and most schools do have
Right.
a just bus that they transport kids
The
to.
ski club and then a half day, right, if we had a half day, say in February, instead of having our half day in March, right, where it might be snow, there might not be, if we had it in January, February, it was a half day, the ski club could offer that as an option, hey, we're gonna go ski club, we're going half day, right, through the ski club, so we do transport for ski club, that they pay for a portion of their ticket, but, that has some possibilities to it. So I think it's something definitely to think about. And,
It would be great.
that would be,
In the opportunities for our kiddos.
yeah. So I think, the ski club now, Dawn Parker and Stacy, does Stacy still do it? Yeah. So I think it's a conversation maybe to bring there.
It's hard for me. I have a diabetic daughter. I can't send her to ski club. I have to have her in the GIS program where there's more robust operations.
Right, but if the ski club went there.
Yeah, if they involve themselves in that organization, that would make
Well,
sense.
Bromley does not have night skiing, so it would have to be during.
Yeah, it's.
Right, but if it was a half day that we had, the
Right.
ski club could say, hey, we're doing an outing to
Take it
this
back
mountain
into that, yeah.
instead of that mountain. And I think that would be a possibility.
It's like a $10,000 value for me and I'm paying $500. It's amazing. It's why we live out here.
Right. And again, and then I think there's also the thing that some families can afford that, some can't.
There's scholarships.
Then one can bring to the attention. Any schools bring that up?
If this board is agreeable, I would like to toss my name in the ring for the BOCES board seat for this one seat.
I think we need somebody on that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
So Gino, you work with them. I'm not sure if they have a boilerplate resolution that we plug his name into.
I got some thanks for the district, since we talked about special ed some tonight. I have one son who when he was young in preschool, started with speech therapy about 10 years ago, and his teacher's in the room, so thank you so much. It made a huge difference for him, obviously, and he's thriving today, so thank you. I also, Ethan, my oldest, who's at Missouri now, graduated a year ago, signed up for classes this spring, and his advisor informed him that they needed to have a meeting to work over a graduation plan because he walked in with so many credits, courtesy of the wonderful AP classes he took here, that he has 60 hours when he finishes this semester.
Wow.
And so he is going to graduate in 2 more years. So 3 years of college. So as a parent, I really thank you for the $20,000 that you've saved.
Separator, yeah.
The district does some amazing things. So,
great.
so that was
Good for
awesome.
him. And it's also a testament to him
Yeah.
and
Well, the testament-
because it's a lot. that
It's a
he took
testament to the
on.
teachers too, who got him through all of it. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I like your hallway hearts that I saw on my way down to the gym.
It's so
They
great.
have adorable little messages. Some are funny, some are inspirational, but I thought those were really cute. All the classes are doing them.
Mrs. Paul's class, our junior, senior high school, focus rooms, that work with Mrs. Paul, they started it and, all kinds of kids have been joining in and the idea was to try to stretch them around the whole school. And actually last night, after the budget workshop, I got consumed by kind of reading them.
Yeah.
down the lines. I went back and, I was thinking about, and I actually met with, Mrs. Paul today and I forgot to mention it to her, how amazing it is. And I would love to find a way, so Mr. Moore can go back and have that conversation to preserve them or showcase them. And it may be not all around the hallway where they might fall down after a while, but maybe we can, you know, somehow showcase them or preserve them for some of the year, because I think it is nice to, you know, like for kids to read them. They're just really
Especially
some
they're
really
written by other
lovely
kids too.
messages.
Yeah.
That kids, you know, they're from their hearts, you know, that's the adults, I put one up there, you know, we all are putting them up there, but I think it's just really, especially the ones that you know came from the kids, it's just so heartwarming, just the really positive messages
Yeah.
that they say.
They're
It
really
would
cute.
just be nice some way to be able to, I don't know, maybe we scan them in and create something, but I'd love to do something to kind of remember them from year to year, because it is amazing.
Yeah.
We sometimes dwell so much on the negative and there's just so many positive.
Yeah, they're really
statements.
cute if you walk by them. So funny.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped to browse. So.
Yes,
Yeah, I know, I
yes,
just-
they really, I was thinking it was probably about like 7:30 last night, by the time I was going down and I was thinking, boy, if anybody watched me on video, I'd be like, oh. it's fine." Just going along, so, yeah, it was great.
I don't have any such hard things to say, just that we went to the legislative breakfast over in, Rosie's over in Saratoga at the Myers Center, and it was so very interesting to see the CTE students there, and they had a representative at each table. They chatted about their pathway, and it was just amazing to talk to them, and the food was excellent.
So nice.
They talked about all of the legislative things that they were looking for budget, and their, you know, how they were moving forward, and, you know, much more positive notes this year than in the last year. It's just, it was a very nice morning.
Yeah, that's just depressing.
Mhm.
A better state aid run, so.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Right, so we do have, some dates to remember. We have the break coming up and the sixth grade plays made some mention to us. But as far as our work, we do have a policy committee meeting in March. Our next budget workshop, which would be the program component of our budget, is February 25th at 6 o'clock here at the library. Our next regular meeting is on the 12th. It is not the third Wednesday, so just change that. And March 26th is the safety committee that you mentioned. Or any other thing on the agendas for? So at this point, I would like to open the meeting back up for public comment. If there's anybody who would like to share a comment with the board. come forward to the podium. Thank you.
No.
Send me the executive.
Yeah.
Just the discussion on the front.
Yeah. No, just employment. Yeah, leading to the appointment and employment. Appointment. Appointment and employment.
Entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussion of employment history of a particular person, leading to the appointment and employment of that person.
Moved.
Motion by Peter,
Second.
second by Tom. All those in favor, please
Can
say
we just clarify, are we gonna have action afterwards?
No
or-
action.
Okay, for everybody, okay. Now I'll vote.
Motion carried 5-0. We do not anticipate any action for executive session.
Leave your office?
Yeah.
Your table.
It's like.
So we'll meet over in the building.
Thank you, everybody. It'll log me out automatically. See you later.
Yeah.
Katie, thank you. Karen, amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was great.